Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you're seeing someone who isn't exactly you? Sometimes we get so used to what we show the world that we forget what it's like to really look at ourselves. Wake up, brush your teeth, get dressed, go out for another day, and repeat this cycle as if it were automatic. But inside, deep down, there is a silent voice that sometimes whispers, "That's not me." Have you ever felt this? That desire to simply be who you are, without fear, without effort, without needing to prove anything? Tell you something. When we were children, everything was simpler. We laughed loudly, spoke our minds, cried without shame. But as we grow up, we start to learn that we have to hide some parts, that you have to behave a certain way to be accepted. And then, without understanding, we start wearing a mask. At first it seems harmless, just a little way to fit in. But over time, it becomes a burden. It's strange, right? Because even surrounded by people, it gives a feeling of loneliness, as if no one sees who you really are, and maybe they won't even see it, because you don't show it yourself anymore. That girl full of dreams, who believed she could change the world, is still there. It's just quiet, hoping you hear it again. And do you know what she wants most? Be free. Be accepted as you are. No more pretending. Often this mask was built to protect you, to avoid criticism, rejection, judgment. But there comes a point where it no longer protects, it imprisons, and you start to lose yourself. Start living a life based on what is expected of you, and not on what you really want. Have you ever stopped to think about it? How many decisions have you made trying to please others and not yourself? Look, if this is happening inside, don't ignore it. Perhaps you are precisely at this moment of awakening, to ask yourself, who am I really? Not what I do, not what others think of me, but who am I when no one is looking? And why is it so difficult to show this true version to the world? Is it fear of not being enough? Of being rejected? Or have you forgotten what it's like to be you? Just imagine if you had permission from today onwards to be exactly who you are. No need to hide, no need to prove anything. What would your life be like? What would your routine, your friendships, your dreams be like? Would it be lighter, more sincere, more alive? The truth is that you don't need anyone's approval to be who you are. You just need to give yourself that permission. Let me ask you a very direct question. At what point in your life did you stop being you to try to be what was expected of you? Comment below. Be sincere. I read all the comments, and who knows, maybe your answer will also help someone else find themselves. Sometimes healing begins when we share what we carry in silence. And to break the ice once and for all, if you could look in the mirror today and speak a single sentence to your soul, what would you say? Comment. Here. This question may seem simple, but it reveals a lot about how much you've been listening to yourself. Or not. You deserve to find yourself again. You deserve to live a life that truly represents you. And if you've come this far, it's because your soul wants to breathe again. You want to free yourself from these layers and feel, dream, live again. And believe me, this reunion with yourself could be the beginning of a new story. A true story. Truly. With soul. With purpose. If this content is making you look inside and feel like it's time for a change, then you're in the right place. This channel is made for you who are tired of living to please others and want to rediscover your essence. So take advantage now and subscribe to the channel, because there is a lot here that will help you on this journey back to yourself. And if this video touched on something, leave a like, so I know that it made sense to you. So we continue together, with truth, with courage, with soul. Perhaps the hardest part of all this is realizing that this mask that seems to weigh so much today didn't come out of nowhere. It was placed little by little, like armor that we don't even realize we've started wearing. And the most curious thing is that no one is born using it. Remember that free soul we talked about just now? It existed, and it probably still exists inside. It's just suffocated by years and years of trying to please everyone, except you. It all starts back there. A comment here, a look of disapproval there. You do something spontaneous and someone says that it's not the time for that, or that that's not for a well-behaved girl. So, you hold on. Next time, think twice before acting. And then, 3. Until one day, without even realizing it, he starts acting just the way they expect. as if I had been given a script. But this script was never written by you. There are people who start hiding when they are still children, others in adolescence, when the fear of rejection becomes a giant monster, and some only notice the mask in adulthood when they feel tired, but don't know exactly what. The truth is that we adapt to the environment, and to survive you often get lost. It molds so much that it dissolves, and when someone asks, "Who are you?" there's that uncomfortable silence, because you don't even know anymore. And you know what's most painful? It's just that deep down, all of this happened out of a legitimate desire to be accepted. We just wanted love, acceptance, belonging. But without understanding, we exchange all of this for a character, a role that seems safe but is expensive. It costs energy, self-esteem, authenticity, and there comes a time when it explodes, or in the form of an existential crisis, or in the form of pain that we cannot explain. There is a question that may hurt, but can open many doors. Who did you learn from that being you wasn't enough? Think carefully and comment here. Sharing this can be liberating. Sometimes the person didn't even have bad intentions, but the words left marks, and talking about it now could be the first step to healing. You no longer need to repeat this cycle. The good news is that, just as the mask was built little by little, it can also be dismantled, with courage, with self-love, and one step at a time. And do you know which one is the first? It's what you've already done, recognizing that something isn't right, because no one wakes up by chance. If you're here, feeling all of this, it's because your time has come. Don't blame yourself for hiding. It was the safest thing you found to continue. But now that you are aware of this, you can choose differently. You can, little by little, bring back your essence, the one who dreams, who feels, who has her own light. And it doesn't need to fit in to have value. Your value is not in being perfect. It's about being true. Sometimes we get so used to living to please that we even forget to ask, what do I really want? When was the last time you listened to yourself without fear? That you made a decision thinking about yourself and not what others would think? Comment here. When was the last time I chose myself? I really want to read your answer. Perhaps the greatest gift you can give yourself today is to start over, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Rescue that version of yourself that you abandoned to be what others expected, and rebuild a lighter, more sincere life, more yours. Because behind every mask there is a soul crying for freedom, and you deserve to live without hiding who you are. And maybe that's why, even after so many achievements, so many smiles in the photos, so many words of encouragement that you repeat to yourself, there's still a void, a silent discomfort that grows inside, as if something is out of place. Because when we spend a lot of time being who others expect, there comes a time when the body continues, but the soul slowly fades away. The name of this is not drama, it's emotional exhaustion. It's the weight of carrying an identity that wasn't born from your heart, but from pressure, fear, comparison. And you know what hurts the most? It's just that on the outside everything is right, but inside, nothing seems to fit. You smile, but you don't feel it. You say, it's okay, but you know it's not. And then you start living on automatic, waiting for something to change, but not knowing where to start. There are people who begin to feel this little by little, an unexplained sadness, constant anxiety, or that feeling that they are always missing something, even without knowing what. And that's not weakness. It's the real you trying to get your attention, trying to remind you that you weren't born to live pretending, that your soul has color, has a voice, has light, and she's asking to come back. When we forget who we are, we start to accept less than we deserve, get involved with people who don't see us, accept jobs that don't represent us, and say yes to things that hurt just to avoid conflict. All because the fear of disappointing others became greater than the desire to be happy. And this drains your energy, your joy, your desire to live with purpose. And here comes that question that no one wants to hear, but that needs to be asked. Are you living, or are you just existing? Comment here honestly. Do you feel that your life reflects who you really are, or just who you were? This answer may hurt, but this is where many people start to turn the key. Because facing the truth hurts, but it also frees. The price of forgetting who you are is not paid with money, but with wasted time, broken relationships, and shelved dreams. And the longer you postpone this reunion with your essence, the more life gives you signs, sometimes in the form of fatigue, sometimes in the form of a crisis, and sometimes, like now, in the form of a video that appeared exactly when you needed to hear it. It's no coincidence that you're here. Not even. It's life inviting you to come home. And home, in this case, is not a physical place. It's that space inside you where peace, truth, self-love lives. Maybe you walked away from it by trying to be strong, trying to please, trying to fit in. But now, it's past time to remember. You have the right to choose yourself again. From the moment you recognize that you are living far from yourself, you have two options: continue pretending, or start rescuing yourself. And this rescue begins with small but profound steps. One of them might now be, comment here about something you loved doing, but stopped for fear of what people would think. Let's create a safe space for this. Sometimes, just by writing, we start to reconnect with who we really are. You don't need to have all the answers now, but you need to have the courage to ask uncomfortable questions, because that's what paves the way for change. And if you got this far, it wasn't for nothing. There is a lighter, more sincere and more your life waiting for you. And it all starts when you stop and truly decide to find yourself again. And perhaps the scariest part of this reunion with our essence is discovering that it's not just about remembering who we are, but also to look with courage at everything we hid under the carpet for so long. Because in this process of trying to please, we not only create a pretty version to show the world, we also push inside everything that we judge to be ugly, wrong, exaggerated. And that's where the invisible war begins between what we show and what we hide. Carl Jung called this persona and shadow. The persona is this social face that we build to be accepted, polite, calm, pleasant, controlled. And the shadow is everything we repress: anger, fear, desire, ambition, pain. And do you know what the problem is? That the more you try to hide your shadow, the more it finds crooked ways to appear. In explosions that you don't understand, in sabotage that you do unintentionally, in decisions that later make you cry alone. It's as if two forces live inside you, one wanting to keep everything beautiful and accepted, and the other screaming for attention, wanting to be heard, seen, welcomed. And while these two parts live apart, you feel this confusion, this silent chaos, because you can't have peace when you live divided between what you feel and what you pretend. Healing only begins when you decide to stop running away and start truly listening to yourself. But calm down. Looking at your shadow doesn't mean blaming yourself or being ashamed. It means humanizing yourself, understanding that every human being has light and also has darkness, and that you are no less worthy for feeling anger, sadness, jealousy, or insecurity. On the contrary, you are stronger when you have the courage to look at all of this without hiding, without pretending, no running away. And I know that's scary. It really does. But answer me honestly. Is there something inside you that you try to hide even from yourself? Comment here, even if it's just one word. Write yes if you feel there is something that needs to come out of the silence. It may seem simple, but this type of sharing opens up space for healing. And you're not alone in this. Often, what we fear most to show is exactly what needs the most love. That old pain, that wrong decision, that part you learned to hate about yourself. All of that doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be welcomed. Because the more you reject your shadow, the more it dominates your life without you realizing it. And the more you accept, the more freedom you gain. There is no freedom without acceptance, and there is no cure without truth. Your persona may even maintain appearances, but it is your shadow that guards the forgotten treasures. There are your traumas, yes, but there are also your hidden strengths, your true voice, your ability to love deeply, your intuition, your creativity. Everything that was silenced is still there, hoping you have the courage to open the door. And here's a provocative question. If no one was going to judge you for anything, who would you be? Think about it carefully, and comment here. I would be, complete with whatever comes to mind. Let's create a free space without judgment, where everyone can be who they are. This kind of conversation can change everything, not just for you, but for anyone reading it who feels the same way. Remember, Truly knowing yourself is not just about discovering what makes you smile. It's also about embracing what makes you cry, about integrating everything you were taught to hide. Because only when you put all the parts together do you start to feel whole. And being whole is much better than being perfect. And when you start to embrace your shadow, something curious happens. The mask that seemed so firm starts to crack, subtly, but real. You start to notice small inconsistencies in your daily life. Things that seemed normal before now bother you. Situations that you accepted in silence suddenly generate an internal revolt. It's as if your true self begins to push away the walls that have held you back for so long. Maybe you are exactly at that point right now, where nothing seems to fit like it used to. You talk to some people and feel like you're forcing a version that no longer represents you. In moments of silence, an anguish that is difficult to explain comes. And the strangest thing? From the outside, no one notices, but inside it feels like everything is falling apart. These signs are not weakness. They are the beginning of the truth emerging. It's the soul asking for space, asking for air. That's when you start to question, why am I still here? Why do I continue to maintain this relationship, this work, this standard? And these questions do not arise by chance. They are the beginning of change. They're like lights flashing in the dark, trying to guide you back home. And do you know what's most important right now? Don't ignore these signs, because ignoring only prolongs the pain. Have you ever heard the phrase, "The body speaks what the soul is silent"? So it is. Sometimes, the constant headache, the tiredness that never goes away, the urge to cry out of nowhere, these are signs that something inside you is asking for attention. It's not cool. It's the unspoken truth. So, tell me here in the comments, do you feel like something inside you is changing? That there is something wanting to come to light? Write sincerely. It can be a word, a feeling, a confusion. The important thing is for you to start putting it out there. Sometimes writing is the first step to freeing yourself. And you can be sure there are many people feeling the same as you. And your comment can help create this healing space for everyone. Maybe your mask is already so glued to your face that you don't even know how to take it off. But calm down. It doesn't have to fall all at once. You just need to start noticing where it starts to bother you. When you feel like you need to pretend, smile unwillingly, accept what you don't agree with, that's the crack. That's where you can start breathing again, a little bit at a time. And if this all seems confusing to you, it's because you're exactly in the middle of the process, at the point where the old version is no longer useful and the new one has not yet been born. This is the most uncomfortable place, but also the most powerful, because this is where you can choose. Keep pretending or start living. If I could ask you one thing right now, it would be this. Look fondly at the moments when you feel like running away from yourself, because these are the exact moments when your soul is asking for help. It's saying, listen to me. Can you remember one of those moments? Comment here. I felt this when complete in your own way. This could be the start of something much bigger than you imagine. The truth is that no one can sustain a lie for long without paying the price. And when the crack appears, it's life giving you a chance to rebuild with more truth, with more love, with more authenticity. And as hard as it may seem right now, this could be your rebirth. And when you start to see these cracks, to realize that the life you support no longer makes sense, a truth comes that may hurt at first, but frees you. You are not that person you learned to pretend to be, and it never was. You just wore a role for so long that you started to believe in it. But inside you, there has always been something bigger, truer, purer, waiting for a chance to live. The issue is that we often confuse identity with behavior. Just because you've been silent for years doesn't mean your voice doesn't exist. Just because you're used to pleasing doesn't mean you don't have your own desires. Just because you lived a life that fit into the mold of others doesn't mean you were born to fit in. Maybe you were born precisely to overflow. There's a strength inside that you don't even know yet. And it is this strength that begins to appear when you understand that you no longer need to carry a false version of yourself. You can choose to let go. Let go of what you were taught to be. Let go of expectations that are not yours. Let go of the fear of displeasing. Because the only thing you need to be is true to yourself. And I know this can bring doubts. If I Stop pleasing, will they love me? If I show you who I am, will you still want to stay? These questions hurt because we are afraid of losing. But here's a harsh and liberating truth. Everything that only remains when you pretend has been leaving you for a long time. The difference is that now you have the chance to let go with awareness. So comment here. What is the biggest fear that stops you from being who you really are? Write sincerely. Sometimes just by putting it out there, you start to disarm that fear. And if you want, write it like this: my fear is, and complete it. You can be sure that other people will identify with you, and you could end up being the voice someone else needed to wake up to. The truth is that you were never weak, you were never little, you were never invisible. You just believed the wrong voices for too long. But now, the time has come to listen to yours. The most important, the one you muffled, suffocated, ignored, but never stopped whispering. And maybe today she's screaming inside you. Not out of anger, but out of hope. It doesn't matter how many years have passed living on automatic. Its essence is still there. She didn't die. She just stayed silent. But the silence of the soul is not giving up. It is waiting. Wait for a moment like this. When you finally realize that you don't need to rebuild yourself, you just need to remember. Remember who you were before they tried to shape you. And here's a question that could change everything. If today you could be 100% yourself without fear of judgment, what would change in your life? Comment here. It could be something small or something gigantic. The important thing is that you start to imagine this life lighter, more yours, more real, and allow that image to guide you. Life truly begins when you stop living to be accepted and start living to be whole. And being whole means assuming even what you were once taught to hide. You are not a paper. You are a living soul, with your own light, with a unique identity. And the world needs to see this, but first, you need to see it. You need to believe, because no one can live your truth for you. And when you finally see that you were never that character who lived to please, comes the most real challenge of all: undressing. Not the clothes, but the layers of expectations, of swallowed sentences, of the versions you invented to survive. And there's no script for that. It doesn't have a manual. It's you with you. Face your truth. And that moment, as painful as it is also the most liberating. Undressing takes courage, because it shows what you tried to hide your whole life. Those traits that taught you to feel shame, those desires that you buried so as not to be judged, those dreams that you kept for fear of failure. And that's where a lot of people back off, because you think it will hurt too much to look at all this. But what really hurts is to keep pretending. Sometimes, the first step to this liberation is simply admitting that you are tired. Tired of supporting what no longer makes sense. Tired of smiling to please, of lowering your head to avoid conflict, of keeping your soul quiet just to keep other people's peace. And this tiredness, which you may have felt as weakness, is actually strength. It's the real you saying, enough is enough. And you don't have to change everything at once. Start by removing one layer at a time. Allow yourself to say no where you have always said yes. Allow yourself to say what you feel even if your voice is still shaky. Allow yourself to not know who you are right now, because that empty space is fertile. It is there that you plant your truth, and every honest choice you make is a piece of the mask that falls. Now let me ask you something that might change your mind. What is the first layer you feel you need to remove from your life right now? What you know no longer represents who you are. Comment here. I want to remove, and complete with whatever comes your way. This is more than a comment, it is an act of liberation, and it can inspire others who are going through the same transition. You may cry during this process. Maybe you feel lost at times, and that's okay. Crying doesn't make you weak. Feeling doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it brings you closer to your humanity, and your humanity is your power, because only those who truly feel can truly live, and living truthfully is a gift you can no longer postpone. You don't have to be strong all the time. You just need to be honest. And sometimes being honest means admitting that you can't take it anymore. Who wants to change? That you can no longer live with a choked soul. And believe me, when you make that decision, the universe conspires. People show up, doors open, your energy changes. Because truth has a vibration that attracts everything that is real. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready to transform. She just needs you to be willing. Willing to give up control. Willing to trust the process. Willing to put yourself first. And if you feel like you're in that moment, it's because the change has already started within you. Even if it's not visible yet, the seed is already planted. And I ask you with affection, if today was the first day of the rest of your life, what would you leave behind? Write in the comments. And more than that, keep this question with you, because sometimes all we need is to stop and remember. You can start again. Yes, you can live without carrying the weight of what you were taught to be. Just have the courage to undress. And that courage already lives inside. And it's precisely when you start to peel off these layers, one by one, that something extraordinary happens. You start to feel the taste of freedom, but not that superficial freedom to do whatever you want. It is a much deeper freedom, that of be who you are, without fear, without guilt, without needing to apologize for existing. And this freedom is transformative. It's at this point that life begins to align with who you really are. You start to attract people who really see you. Start experiencing situations that make sense. Connections are lighter. The choices firmer. And you start to realize, damn, I didn't need that much effort. I just needed to be me. It seems simple, right? But it is powerful. Authenticity is like a key. It opens doors that were locked due to the need for approval. When you are authentic, you don't try to fit in. You create your own space, and then everything changes. You stop begging for emotional crumbs and start feeding on your own truth. And the most beautiful? This inspires others to do the same. But here's a truth that no one likes to hear. Being authentic can scare those who are used to your edited version. Some people will walk away. Some situations will fall apart. And you will feel scared. You'll want to retreat. But calm down. This is part of the process. Sometimes, the universe takes away what is not real to make room for what really is. And now, I want to ask you a question that may touch you deeply. What would you stop hiding if you knew no one would judge you? Comment here honestly. Sometimes what we hide most is what most needs to be said. And just by putting it into words, you can start to heal something that has been stuck inside for a long time. Being authentic is not about being perfect. It's about being whole. It's about not losing yourself anymore trying to fit into tight molds. It's about honoring your story, your feelings, your voice. And you know what's craziest? When you finally start showing yourself as you are, the fear diminishes, because you realize you don't have to pretend anymore. And that is liberating. The freedom to be yourself is priceless. It brings lightness. She brings peace. It brings clarity. You stop living according to other people's opinions and start building a life based on your values. And that makes you sleep better, makes you wake up with more sense, makes you walk more steadily. Because there is nothing more beautiful than someone who lives in truth. But let me tease you a little. What are the little lies you still tell yourself to keep pleasing others? It may seem like a difficult question, but it reveals where prisons disguised as education or kindness still exist. Comment on one of them here. Let's take this out of the shadows and into the light. Because it is in the light that everything begins to transform. You don't need permission to be who you are. It's past time to understand this. Life is not about adapting to each environment. It's about maintaining your essence, even when the environment doesn't understand you. That's courage. This is maturity. This is self-love. And if you've made it this far in this video, it's because this freedom is already being born within you. And after experiencing what it means to live authentically, the most decisive moment of this journey arrives, if you choose. Because being yourself isn't just about expressing yourself, it's about putting yourself first without guilt. It's about looking inside and saying, now it's me for myself. And this choice, although simple in words, is one of the most challenging in practice. Because your whole life you were told that putting others before you was a virtue, that canceling yourself was a sign of love. But it's not. You choose yourself when you say no to something that everyone expects you to accept. You choose yourself when you stop asking for permission to be who you are, when you decide that your peace is worth more than any approval. Choosing is an act of courage, because that's when you become responsible for yourself. No more excuses, no more hiding behind what others think or want. And it may seem selfish, but it's not. It's emotional maturity. It's self-love in action. Because whoever chooses himself, chooses others more clearly too. And do you know why? Why? Stop accepting crumbs. Stop settling for the minimum. Stop negotiating what is non-negotiable. Your essence. And then everything changes. Everything aligns. Everything starts to make sense. But we can only choose ourselves when we understand that it is not anyone's obligation to save us. You no longer need to wait to be validated, rescued, accepted. You need to find yourself, get up, and follow, even scared, even without support. Because in the end, it's you with you. And this is the most important relationship in your life. Now answer me with your heart. What would you do tomorrow if you chose yourself first? Comment here. It could be something small like taking some time for yourself, or something big like moving to another city, ending a relationship, or starting over from scratch. The important thing is to reflect. What would be different if you stopped abandoning yourself? Many women spend their lives waiting for the right moment, for courage to emerge, for approval to arrive. But let me tell you something. Life doesn't give advance notice. The change does not come with a manual. It happens when you decide that enough is enough, that you can no longer live halfway, that you can no longer continue doing everything for others and forgetting about yourself. And you know what's most beautiful? When you start to choose yourself, the world may resist at first, but then it responds. Right doors are starting to open. The right people start to arrive. The right opportunities are starting to appear, because everything in the universe respects who you respect. Everything is organized around those who position themselves truthfully. But let me tease you even more. How many times have you abandoned yourself in the last few months to please someone? Remember a specific moment and share it here. It can be painful, but it can also be liberating. When you talk about it, you take ownership of your story. You exit survival mode and enter awakening mode. You deserve to be your priority. Not sometimes, always. Because when you are well, everything around you flourishes. You become a source, not a burden. You inspire. You don't cancel yourself out. You expand. You don't shrink. And the world needs to see this version of you. But first, you need to see her and choose it. And when you finally choose yourself for real, something changes inside you. It's not a noisy change that everyone sees. It's silent, but you feel it. A kind of peace that begins to settle in. A clarity that didn't exist before. Because choosing is just the beginning. The real step is to start over. It's looking at everything you've experienced, being grateful for what you've served, and having the courage to let go of what no longer fits. This fresh start doesn't have to be radical. It can start small, like a new thought when you wake up, a lighter choice, a no said firmly, a yes said truthfully. These are subtle gestures, but they change everything, because every small decision aligned with who you really are is a piece that fits into the puzzle of your true life. You don't need to go back to the way things were, and in fact, it shouldn't, because you are no longer the same. You are someone who survived your own pain, who faced your shadows, who had the courage to look in the mirror and ask, "Who am I?" And only those who ask this question sincerely are ready to live with purpose. Perhaps the most beautiful part of this process is discovering that you always had everything inside you. He always had light, strength, wisdom, but it was covered, hidden, silenced. And now, for the first time in a long time, you can take a deep breath and say, "I'm coming home." And that house is yourself. No masks, no armor, just you, with all your essence. And now I want to ask you a question to close this cycle with an open heart. If you had a new chance to live your story, with everything you've learned so far, what would you do differently? Comment here. This reflection can not only help you start over with more awareness, but it can also inspire other people to do the same. Remember, when you transform yourself, you pave the way for others to transform too. Starting over is not failing. It's allowing yourself to evolve. It's honoring the past, but choosing a new future. A future where you don't erase yourself to fit in, where you don't silence to be accepted, where you don't diminish yourself so as not to bother. Starting over is saying, "I deserve to live a life that represents me, and you deserve it, even if not everyone understands, even if not everyone follows." The walk can be lonely at times, but it is necessary, because in the silence of the soul, you find your truth again. And whoever finds his own truth finds everything: strength, sense, clarity, faith. And from then on, you start to live differently. You start to attract what is true, because you stopped pretending. So, if this video touched your heart, don't let it die when it ends. Comment here, "I'm ready to find myself again." And if this content made you reflect, helped you in some way, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs a new beginning. Let's spread this healing energy and truth to more people. You've come this far, and that already says a lot about your strength. Don't ignore the call that is echoing within you. Starting over is scary, yes, but continuing to lose yourself, living to please, suffocating who you really are, that's dangerous. So choose with love, start over with faith, and never again abandon the incredible woman who lives inside. If you felt like this video spoke to you, don't stop here. In the next video that appears here on the screen, we continue this journey in more depth. Click and come with me to discover how to free yourself from everything that still holds you inside. Thank you for staying until the end, for trusting herself, and for taking this step of starting over. Now it's you for you, and I'm here with you always.